service. That alternative service is when people are asked by their country to go into the military, the draft as it were, and they say, no, I'm a conscientious objector, I don't believe in going to war. And so in a lot of countries, they recognize that they may have citizens who, for conscious reasons, don't want to serve in the military. So they set up what's called alternative service, which means you now can do a job at the hospital or work on a road crew, but you won't get paid. And so you do that in lieu of going to jail. Well, this is what the Watchtower taught for years. They taught that if you are Jehovah's Witness and you're called, you're an 18-year-old Jehovah's Witness and you're called before the draft board, you would explain to them that you will not be accepting the alternative service job, that work at the hospital, because you're doing nothing but just substituting and you're not maintaining your neutrality. And so as Jehovah's Witnesses around the world, young men who went before draft boards and they were given the alternative of going to work in the military, not work in the military, but to work in the hospitals, and so they turned it down and they went to jail. I remember we had a governing body member that got back from a zone visit, and he'd been down to the Asian Pacific countries during the zone visit. And he was relating the experience of how their brothers in certain countries that he'd visited, these guys serve 12 years. They get called up before the draft board. They come in. They say, are you going to take the alternative service job? No. They send them off to jail. At the end of their 4 years, they bring them back. You going to go to the Army, or are you going to take the alternative? No. They go back to jail. This is 8 years. They bring them back sometimes a third time. Same question. You going to go serve in the Army? You going to go serve in alternative service? No. And they go back to jail again. So we're talking about a young man from 18 to 30 years of age. 30 years of age. He comes out of jail. He's a felon. He now will have a difficult time getting a job. Anybody who looks at any application, especially in the United States, down at the bottom, they got little boxes. Have you ever been convicted of a felon? People who work in human resources, they'll tell you, if I see that box check, that is going into file 13. Now, it might not be legal to do that, but they do, because people who are felons, they're going to have a hard time getting employment. Well, the problem was the society decided to change the teaching, leaving thousands of young men all around the world languishing in prisons all around the world. Now, I'm thinking to myself, this is ridiculous, because people's lives have been impacted by your teachings that you said were teachings of God. It's like Daniel in the lion's den. It's like the 3 Hebrew boys in the fire. That's what I'm going through for this teaching. And the teaching turned out not to be anything that the Bible ever supported. And this is people's lives. You can't jack with people's lives. One day you teach, this is what God says. Next day you're coming back, my bad. Now, I personally knew someone back in North Carolina who went to prison during the Vietnam War. In fact, as kids, when we was growing up, that was actually how we learned about this brother and got to know him. And so he came to be a brother that we knew. And I remember, how he would often relate what happened. How that when he got his draft letter, him and his mom, they went to the body bells and they asked, look, would I be able to get into any program or anything? What do you think? And of course, the brothers told him, look, right now the society's position is that you're going to have to go to prison, or you're going to be dealt with by the congregation. But look, we got the circulars here coming in a couple of weeks. Why don't we wait and see if he has any new information from the society? So, when he would tell the story, he waited and during the meeting that night, that Tuesday night, he said his stomach was just in knots. So they went in the back room, they met with the circuit overseer, and he said, well, right now, brothers, as far as I know, you're going to have to go to prison. He said, but what I can do, I can contact society, I can contact them just to make sure. He said, we'll get together again on Thursday night after the meeting. So he said for the next 2 days, he couldn't hardly sleep. So when he gets back together on Thursday night, at that particular time, because the way the meetings were structured for the visit the circuit overseer, circuit says, I'm sorry. Society says, what's in print, basically. And so he went to prison. Now, this particular brother, when they came out with this change, this man was serving as an elder. It crushed him. It really crushed him. And the reason why it crushed him was not only did the society change the teaching, and this is very important for any Jehovah's Witness who is listening to this broadcast, the society blamed the brothers who went to jail. That's amazing. I mean, you're talking about slapping somebody in the face. First you come out and tell them, oh, I know you went to jail for 4 years, but the Bible really didn't say you had to go to jail. Well, the society basically said the reason you guys went to jail is because your conscience was so strict. And he was, he's a crushed man because they blamed him for going to jail when that wasn't the case at all. He didn't go to jail because his conscience was too strict. He went to jail because the Watchtower said, if you take this job as an alternative service job, you are not maintaining neutrality. Now, to add more insult to this, I mean, the society just keeps on piling insult on top of insult to these people. They didn't come up with an article. Did you suffer needlessly? You know, how do you feel? Do you feel that you suffered needlessly for God? Can you imagine somebody going to jail? They find out that they went to jail not because God or the Bible said so, but because some writers out of New York City, that's what they came up with and put in the magazine. They read it, they believed it, they applied it, they went to jail. And then to come out and be asked, do you feel you suffered needlessly for God? No, no. The person will be like, no, I didn't suffer needlessly for God. I suffered needlessly for some guys in the writing department who thought this is what I need to be doing. And so this is the kind of stuff that I tell people. When you stop and start asking critical thinking questions, you stand back and you're like, that don't sound like something God would be involved in. God would not send people by the thousands to jail only to change his mind. And then when you find out that it had nothing to do with God. So basically these guys could have gone and taken these jobs with no problem. Can you imagine, man, if a brother went before a draft board, he goes before a draft board, right? And he's standing there, he's explaining, very eloquently, as one of Jehovah's Witnesses, as a Christian, we won't take alternative service job because it's merely just a substitution, and I'm going to maintain my Christian neutrality and everything. And, you got his mom and daddy standing over there, and they all proud. Look at my son, he's taking a stand for the truth. Then you got some elders standing, look at the brother Jones is taking a stand for the truth. He's a good young man. Okay, he go to jail. He's sitting in jail for 2 weeks. New magazine come out. Can you imagine this guy like, could I go back and talk to the draft board again? Then he wants to come back in front of the draft board. He's like, I know when I was here 2 weeks ago, I told you I couldn't take the alternative service job, but I got this new magazine from New York, Bethel, Watchtower, governing body. They sent me this new magazine, and it says I can take the job now. Is that job still open for alternative service? Can you imagine that? We're talking about playing with people's lives. And so when you take a step back, you then begin to ask questions about other things. And then you see this similar pattern. And the pattern that you see is very simple. What you see are human opinions that have been elevated to divine status. And now it's become a requirement of God. In order to maintain your standing and your favor with God, you have to do ABC, only for it to turn out to have always been simply an opinion of humans. So this is what started us on this process of looking at what we had been taught. And as you started digging, I'll be honest with you, I can see why the society does not want friends asking questions, digging into the history of the organization. Because once you start and you're like, man, this don't sound like nothing God got. This foundation can't be built on God. You begin to see it. And once as an elder, I realized, a lot of the stuff that we were telling the friends, it was just the opinion of the writing department. Just that simple.